This party started. Good morning and welcome to week two. Deuce. How did everything go? I saw some of you did put your ideal readers in the chat, so thank you for that. If you haven't done so and you're still working on it, no problem. Any challenges or questions about that before we move into today's hot topic?
I didn't know exactly where, so I bantered back and forth with you, and now I know where to put them. So,
Perfect. You're golden. It's all a learning curve. So thanks for being persistent.
no problem.
Persistent. I actually have some readers for you because being from the Philadelphia area
Oh
and
yeah,
being older, I have plenty of people in my realm who are diehard Eagles fans and maybe good beta readers. So,
yeah.
or advanced readers. Okay, so awesome. So today we're going to start talking about everybody's favorite subject, social media. And I'm going to kind of lay the foundation this week, love it or hate it. And you can make a choice not to use it, and we can talk about that. It wouldn't be necessarily in your best interest, but I understand the tug to not use it, and for a whole variety of reasons. So we're going to talk about that. And then next week, we're going to have an expert. Jennifer Nichols is going to come, and she's going to go a little bit deeper into practical things. So what you're going to get today is this. I'm going to give you a little handout with some ways to think about social media and things that you can share besides about your book. And I'm going to ask John this question, put him on the spot because he's working with a PR professional. When's the perfect time to start talking about your book?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Doesn't mean, so here's the thing. I want you to think about, just like you take your readers on a journey in your manuscript, you want to take your followers on a journey through the publishing process. You've written, yay, I've gotten edits back, yay. You want to show them, where do you write, that kind of stuff. So it's not just about, here's my cover, but you want to have them be excited for you all through the process. Does that make sense? Chris, you do a really great job because you talk about your cats. Everybody loves animals. Most people, I shouldn't say everybody. My brother-in-law hates animals. Psychopath. He's actually very nice. I don't understand people who don't love animals. Anyway, but doing that is helpful, showing things that you're eating or places you're going. John, you're doing a really good job of showing places that you've been. I also want you to take people on the journey of where you're writing. Like, here's where I write. You did that with your motorcycle, which I remember when we were in class together and you were literally on the back of, he was sitting on his motorcycle in full motorcycle gear with his laptop out, pulled over into a rest stop writing. And I was like, holy hell, that's so cool. Like, that is something that sets you apart. So don't be afraid to share that kind of stuff. Okay. Good morning, Gina. So we're going to just jump in and start. And again, this is so inelegant. Slideshow. Okay, leveraging. Everyone can see. I can see all of you. Let me see all of you and not me. Okay, so I don't want that. Leveraging social media early and often. Okay, so I want you to think in terms of your main goal of using social media is to sell your book, yes, but it's not to sell your book in an ask-whole way. And I said ASK. So it's not just necessarily about buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. It's really about building a relationship with your readers because you want them to be excited about this book. And then you want them to also be with you on the ride for when your next book comes out and your next book. And Gina has done a really great job of this in terms of she's got her second edition in front of me. She's already starting the conversation with her readers for what they'd want to read next in her humor anthology series. So think about that. Joe, you've got other books. You want to make sure that you're sharing those covers. And if you have any reviews on Amazon or any advanced reader reviews, create little graphics that, and I can show you how to do that easily, or I can help you do that actually. Just to share that kind of feedback. I know you have 2 other books, Avery, and you've had good success with those. So don't be afraid to dip back into those, because your second book sells your first book, your third book sells your second and your first, and so on and so forth. So, you know, you all, actually, John, you're the only one who doesn't have any other books, but I know you're writing one. I'm just busted on you because I know I can. So there's a lot of different ways to leverage social media. And one of the things that people worry most about is, I'm not comfortable with social media, or I don't know, I don't want to use all of the platforms. And so that's why we started with the question, where do your ideal readers hang out? So like Joe, you think that most of your readers don't hang out on social media. And I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that, because I think for you, Facebook is probably the place where most of your ideal readers hang out. So
I agree.
yeah, so you could, and we'll talk in a moment about personal and professional handles, because they ought to be different. Okay, so 4.45%, and this might be outdated because I think I went to update these stats and I couldn't find easily stats, but like 3.5 billion people are on some form of social media, and most people are on more than one platform. That's a huge pool of people. So more than half, I would say at this point, probably more than half are on at least one platform. So where are they and where are they hanging out? And I made a post today on Instagram, which flowed over to our Facebook, in Highlander Press's Facebook, that talks about how quickly each of the platforms turns over information. So if you think you're sharing too much, you're probably not sharing enough, but we'll talk about that as well. So you want to get your book in all of its forms: first draft, revisions, copy edits, red pen marks, where you're editing, where you're writing, where your cover ideas are coming from. You want to get those in front of your ideal reader yesterday, as John said. Okay. So again, these are 2021, and there's a link to the source, but 81% of people are on YouTube. And now with the advent of YouTube TV, even though they're separate, they're related, YouTube is huge. So for example, Chris, you do amazing videos where you play the piano and you talk about music, because that's such a big part of who you are. You could copy those down from Facebook and upload them to YouTube, and you could have a pretty solid YouTube following. Facebook is still the biggest as far as the regular platforms. I think these numbers probably have shifted. I would say Instagram is probably in line with or higher than Facebook. That's just my gut, because a lot of people, because now they're the same company and things flow from one to the other pretty seamlessly as long as you have your settings properly. Pinterest. If we have time in our schedule, I'll have someone come in to our cohort and talk about Pinterest. Pinterest actually is not social media. Even though most people think of it as social media, it's actually one of the most used search platforms. Like Amazon is a search platform, Google, Ecosia, which I use, is a search engine. Pinterest is a search engine, and it's unique in that you can be seen as an expert on Pinterest pretty quickly, and you can create boards that have your pins, but you can also curate other people's content and move them over, which is interesting. A lot of people think Pinterest in terms of, oh, here's what I want my, paint colors that I want for my dining room, or here's an inspiration for how I want my kitchen to look, or here are recipes. All very good things, and you can have those on your Pinterest account, but you can make them private. So, and you can also I have a business and a personal Pinterest account. So it's actually a great way, and it grows. So people who use Pinterest a lot. So it's a great way to also get your book in front of other people. LinkedIn, again, there's a shift in how people are using LinkedIn. I see more personal posts on LinkedIn. It used to be back in the day, it was like basically a glorified CV and a way to connect for your next career opportunity. But people are using LinkedIn more and more. So if you're on LinkedIn, don't be afraid to talk about your book, to talk about this other part of who you are, and share the same kind of content that you're sharing on Facebook and Instagram. Maybe not pictures of your dinner, but or pictures of your cat. Though you could push back and say, my cat posts are the most beloved cat posts, posts that I have. Give it a try. I'm all about experimentation. So X, I think, is tanking after it's now X. Threads and X are about even. Threads is the Facebook, Instagram, metaverse version. There are actually no statistics right now on Threads, but I suspect that as they're integrated more with Facebook and Instagram and it becomes more seamless between them, that might increase. X is really great for getting in front of journalists and also traditional publishers. So I have a personal X account. I do not really use it. And I've even taken it off my phone because I just don't want to see all the upheaval that's happening there. So, but it's up to you. If that's a place that you want to hang out and invest time, great. TikTok is fun. I'm a new convert to TikTok, and it's actually my fastest growing platform, believe it or not. And I just do little videos here and there, but it is video content. Go ahead, Gina.
Yeah, and talking about TikTok, I just was in a writer's class, so I'd be interested in knowing if these stats have like increased because TikTok
Oh,
is
definitely.
highly recommended for writers. And then
It-
you can just like roll that, I think, your videos into YouTube. So,
yeah.
yeah, and I'm starting to use TikTok, but I'm getting like feedback from people on my
Yeah.
videos. So,
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think that, so this is worldwide. So I do see these are from 2021, these stats, and I looked briefly just to see if I could get stats for 2022. I don't think stats for 2023 might be readily available, but I do think it is growing, and it's excellent for authors. Excellent. I know there are stories out there where people have sold hundreds of thousands of books from TikTok. So I actually, to be fully transparent, I knew nothing. I knew about it. I was reading a lot about it. I had a lot of trepidation. And I had an intern over the summer, and her first job was teach me about TikTok. And she created a document for me that I'm in the process of making for you. So I've got to convert it and just standardize it and make sure it's in a usable format. But I'm happy to share that kind of best practices, what to do, how to set it up. I think I've shared this before, that I was probably for 2 months before I went away on the Camino and on my big vacation last year, I was posting a video 5 days a week, and I had about 250 followers, and they were active. They were asking questions, they were making comments, and they were liking and saving videos. So to me, that's okay. And I thought, I was gone for 3 weeks. I did not post at all. I made 0 posts. And I thought, well, there goes my engagement. To my shock, I had double the followers when I came back. And I'm almost to 600. I'll probably break to 600 followers by the time I'm done this week, honestly. It's like just people are asking questions, they're commenting on videos. Okay, yeah, she's great. Yeah, and so that's all driven by hashtags, and the biggest hashtag is book talk. There's author talk, authors of TikTok, and I can share some of those hashtags as well. But and it's evergreen. So that's the beautiful thing, is that it's evergreen. So it's always showing up, and if people like something that's similar, TikTok's going to put it into its algorithm. So right now the algorithm is great. So if you're nervous about it or have any thoughts about it, we can talk about it in an editorial meeting, or you can ask questions at any point, okay? And I'll get that set up and I'll put it in the list of things that you can do and what I'll share for today. Okay, so we've already talked about your ideal reader. So really understanding where they hang out. And if you're not, so here's the question to ask yourself. Are you comfortable right now posting on those platforms? Are you active and comfortable? And if not, could you be comfortable? Like I just talked about X, like you'd have to sell me pretty hard for me to get back on X and start, pitching my books or your books, because I don't see the same engagement or traction on X. And I don't really feel comfortable there. Like it's not for me, but I also think it's probably not for most of our audio readers. That being said, if you came to me and said, I have a huge following on Twitter, I really want to make sure that you're posting when my book is doing all the things from the publisher's perspective, I would do it. I would do it for you, but I wouldn't love it. So how often do you post and what do you post? And then really, are you doing a balance? So again, I said, don't be an asshole. Don't buy my book. Don't buy my book. Don't register for my book. Don't, all that stuff. Make it a balance of fun facts, facts about you, facts about your genre, facts about other books that you're reading. What if you have a book cover like Chris? I know you had the book cover, the Tolkien book cover. That was an inspiration for your cover. Don't be afraid to share that kind of stuff. Like here's what are your favorite book covers? I love to ask questions, right? You can put facts about the genre, facts about you. You can, I love fun facts. I'm a big fan of A, fun, and B, fun facts. So like on my personal website, I share a fun fact that I'm the history mom and my kids and their friends all rave about my snickerdoodles. And so I've given myself, the label of the world's best snickerdoodle maker. Do you care? Maybe not, but somebody might be like, I want that snickerdoodle recipe, right? And then you can make sure you can add value. Like, what was your journey and how did you find, Highlander Press? How did you decide to publish a different way? How did you, if you've had rejections, like I know, Chris, you've shared some of the very nice rejections that you've gotten. And I know, John, you've gotten some rejections. Like, how did it feel to get those rejections? How did somebody go out of their way to give you personal feedback? That's huge, right? So that kind of stuff. And you can share snippets from your book. You could talk about your characters. My main character, Rainville, is he's a delinquent, but he's a lovable delinquent. And we all want to go for the ride. I mean, the beginning of John's book, I can't wait for you guys to read. Like, really, it's so fun and it's so different. But it really sets the tone for who this main character is and the shenanigans that he gets up to. Right? How's that for a seed, John? We'll just keep watering it.
Do you have an idea for how you can sort of introduce characters and themes in a book without actually just kind of doing explicit excerpt dumps?
Yeah, so you can, a video is a great way. You could talk about, just like I did, like the main character is this guy who you probably would want to be friends with. And even though he, operates on the left side of the law, you can talk about themes. So for you in particular, you want to be talking about, AI. Like, what are the challenges of AI? You could share, there's all kinds of articles in the newspaper, but then not just I read in the Washington Post that, there's the copyright considerations about AI. You could talk about that. You can ask people here to keep an eye out for AI and send stuff over, right? for you, Joe, you have a book about beloved Philadelphia Eagles, and we Philly peeps are like diehard sports fans. Jason Kelce just announced his retirement, right? So how can you link the two, right? Jason Kelce is the Bill Bradley of his day. Maybe, I don't know. I'm making a
No,
link. I don't think so, but
no, nobody's the Bill Bradley of this day.
so how are they different? You know, how you know, what would the combination of players be that could equal one Bill Bradley? That's the kind of stuff you could think about, you know? What was it like when Bill announced his retirement? What was that feeling for him? You could talk about it. So it's newsworthy that's happening now, so you can link to that kind of thing. Avery, you've got a ton of stuff out there. There's so many people from Oprah all the way down to any one given celebrity or musician talking about anxiety and mental health challenges. And I know that even Penn State, there was a player who took a year off because he was struggling mentally, and he's like, I'm putting my mental health first. What wonderful examples to pull from, right? So you can say these are some of the themes that are in there. And Chris, my gosh, there are so many themes running rampant in the world right now that are themes that are in your book. And Gina, humor is always great, right? You can talk about when you have, like, you have a post the other day about kitchen or animals, right? You know, do you have a favorite comedian or a favorite piece of writing of Irma's that talks about the kitchen or cooking, or, and you can talk about it. I wouldn't, you know, cut and paste, but you can take little snippets and say, and here's my take on it, right? Great question, John. Did that answer you in a very long-winded, roundabout sort of way?
It did. Thank you.
I went around the barn there. Okay. So you want to think about social media as a process. So there's first the strategy. We've been kind of talking about the strategy here. What is the content you're going to share? How often are you going to share it? How are you going to share it? And then kind of looking at what's working and what's not working. Analyzing what's working, not what's working, what do you need to shift? And then what's the engagement and how can you increase engagement? Okay, questions are the number one way to engage people. Because there's a psychological thing that happens in our brains. If we don't know the answer, we want to know the answer. Now, can people Google the answer? Sure. But a friend, one of our authors, has children's books that's completely based on fun words, and her social media, her social media is all these fun words. And she's like, don't look it up. What do you think this word means? And she'll give examples, or she'll ask people for a definition. And people come back to see what the answer is, right? So that's a really great way to show examples. Joe, you could talk about stats. You know, who has the most rushing yards historically? You know, you can talk about all different kinds of stats that indirectly relate to your book. AI, what percentage of the world is using Chat GPT? What are they using it for, John? And what do they need to consider? So you can establish yourself in that. Have you ever considered what the world could be like, or talk about a movie that uses AI, right? And the implications socially for that. Okay, so let's dig into these a little bit more. Your strategy is going to be, first of all, the platforms that you're going to use. And I would rather, consistency is the most important thing. If you say, I'm going to post one day a week at 10 o'clock in the morning, every week, 10 o'clock on that day, I would rather you think of this as juggling. If it's like one more thing you have to do, start today, one post. What is that post going to be? And how can you do it? Then when you're comfortable with that one day, where can you comfortably add more? Now, here's a trick that I do is I batch create content. So the downside of that is if there's something timely, in the news that relates to something that I'm talking about, it's not going to be part of that schedule. But I can always throw an extra post in if it's something that's relevant. So think of it that way. So I post 5 days a week, and I'm posting if you look, I have Wisdom Wednesday. I have Marketing Tip Monday. It's the same in our platform. What am I posting about? And then I take my videos that I'm posting on TikTok and I'll repurpose them to like Instagram. Yes, John.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I mean, this is something I kind of despise doing. And so I've outsourced it to the extent possible. But what I've also learned is that if you've got a social media coordinator who's doing this stuff for you, the problem is if you have them develop all your content, then it's going to lack your voice. And that's kind of like your
Yeah.
main thing that you are even selling is not even a book. You're selling like your perspective. So I definitely sit down and do these in massive batches. And the way we came up with is we've got a Google document that's shared between us.
Perfect.
And it's got all these posts, and the ones she's posted are kind of above this line. And then like the lower watermark is further down is the ones I've approved and are all done and ready to be scheduled.
I love that.
The ones below that are sort of still under development, and it kind of helps you sort of keep filling the hopper periodically when you would otherwise procrastinate it.
Absolutely. And I use tools to schedule. I'll show you if I have time. And I know Jennifer's going to dig into a tool called Metricool, which I love because you can get everything in one place. You can pre-schedule, you can put drafts, someone else can post. I absolutely adore Metricool. And it allows you to have TikTok and LinkedIn if you have a paid subscription, and it's not super expensive. So if you think back to our original, you want to get people to get to know you as the author, right? Avery, you do videos, really lovely videos, right? You can just do maybe a little more consistently, and don't make yourself crazy. You can pre-record stuff. Sometimes, as Jan said, I literally batch my content. I create all my Wisdom Wednesday content. I create all of, my Marketing Tip Monday, all my writing prompts, other things. I have a running list of topics. I read industry magazines and I look for stuff. So here's the thing that I will do as I'm seeing things, I might tag you if we're connected, or I might send you a link in an email saying I read this, or like check this out, or I might send you a private message saying this is something you might consider using. So what you focus on grows, right? And as John said, like you don't have to do it yourself if you're not comfortable doing it. Does that cost money? It does. It's an investment. That's why I say in the beginning, it's good to get your voice down anyway, because when you have somebody, they can get your voice, right? They can get your voice or model your voice. And I love, John, that you or she may be creating them, but you can actually, I used to go in and edit to make sure it sounded like me, right? Because there are things that I would never say, and sometimes they just don't get it. And I always leave a note and say, here's how I changed this, so that they can grow and learn.
Absolutely. Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. What do I have up here? Is there a danger of posting too often about your book? Great question, Joe. What you want to do is it's a 5-to-1 ratio. So you want to be posting 5 times about things indirectly related to your book to 1 time about your book. That's how you avoid becoming an asshole, right? Now, when I say asshole, it's like that's the buy my book. Like you want them to take action about your book. It's okay to post about your book in those 5, but you're not directly saying. Like you could be saying, hey, I've found a publisher. And you could tag Highlander Press, right? That's great. We're posting announcements for everybody's books, acquisition announcements. Those are perfect to share to your social media when they come out. And I can look, if yours hasn't been done yet, I can tell you what day it's going to be posted.
That would be great.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll put it in the chat for this when I post the list. And you don't have to just do it once. So think about how you consume content, right? I know for me, I tend to be a scroller on my off hours unless I'm purposefully going on to do something. And so I might miss things. So don't be afraid to put things kind of in a rotation. Put it out again. If somebody missed it, put it out again. It's okay to do that. I wouldn't do it all the time because the people who do follow you be like, I already read that. But it could be also, oh, that's right, I forgot and I wanted to do X. So don't be afraid to do that. So here's some ideas, broad topics and I'll give you a list with a bunch of different ideas that you can download and use for social media. So you want to think of it, you want to be entertaining your readers. You want to educate them about the publishing process or about whatever your book is about, the topic. You want to generate curiosity. They want to know you. They want to know this book. They want to know why this book. They want to know, where do you write? What do you struggle with? Like, I'm a great developmental editor. You do not want me proofreading your book. And I'm not afraid to tell people that. Like, that was like one of the first things. I'm also a reformed CPA, and the first person I hired in my business was a bookkeeper. I didn't want to do that anymore, right? You know, Chris, you're an accomplished pianist. You do concerts, you ran a choir, there's so many cool things about you just beside, you're an avid hiker. I mean, the pictures that you and Paul post about your adventures, that lets people know who you are as a person, as an author. I want to have a cup of tea with her and learn more about her, right? Avery, you're a student. Take people on, I'm walking to class and it's freaking 12 degrees out here. And look how I'm dressed. Like, are you dressed like, Randy from Christmas Vacation, or are you, are you completely coiffed? Let people get to know your quirks. What do you wear on your feet in this kind of weather? If you're going to the beach, show us that umbrella drink. Gina, you run races. You're an avid Disney fan. Like, I've seen those pictures, girlfriend. John, you travel everywhere and you have so many cool places that you've traveled. Don't be afraid to share some of those because they probably inform how you show up on the page. Don't be afraid to connect with people you admire. That you can fangirl or fanboy over, right? So authors, musicians, follow people. And like I have like here's one of my tricks is when I write historical fiction, when I'm writing historical fiction, I actually have playlists for the time period. And so I might tag, you could talk about what's in your playlist. How do you get into the spirit? I like candles that remind me of what it was like for me in that time period. There are ways to generate memories and experiences. Do you have a mood board that describes what your character wears? Like, I cut things out. Like, it's hard to remember what people wore in the 1970s, right? So I tend to look for pictures and create a little mood board. That works for me. I'm a big map drawer. I know, John, you have a map that you kind of drew out. So do you, Chris. You hand drew them. How did you create these worlds that people live in? You both created imaginary worlds. What were the things? You've got a Chinatown quarter. What inspired that Chinatown quarter in your book, John? Chris, you've got all these lands and I happen to be intimately familiar with your maps. So what created that? So think about that kind of stuff. Definitely when we start doing the cover art and we start landing on, even if you've selected your cover, like Chris, you just got 3 good contenders, right? Ask your fans, which one do you love? Doesn't matter what their answer is. Honestly, they just want to be part of the process. John, when we get closer, we can take snapshots and say, what do you think of this? And you don't want to ask them for their permission. That's number one. Like Gina, I know people love that you ask. She has a screaming chicken, rubber chicken on hers, and she had a contest to name the chicken, right? That kind of stuff. But share your cover art, share your sketches, share what inspires you. So let's talk for a moment about curated versus curated versus what curated versus created. I need more coffee. So created is stuff you're going to generate yourself. It's stuff that your photographs, your thoughts, your videos, stuff from your book, stuff about your writing area, stuff that you're creating. Curated is outside of you. So do not be afraid to share curated information as long as you're properly attributing. Instagram makes this so interesting. If you follow me at all, you'll know that I follow some funny people. In particular, there's a guy who reads tweets from your teens. He's from the Philadelphia area. He's hilarious. Things that kids ask. I have kids that same age range, and they're hilarious. So I'll just share them, but I always tag him. So what that does is, and I've actually had, who was it that I had Neil Gaiman, I think it was, actually like when I tagged him on something, and I like talk about fangirl moment. Like I was totally like, Neil Gaiman it's probably his team. I get it, but I'm sticking with it was Neil Gaiman, right? But tag people. Don't do it in a way that's gross, but attribute things. So if you're, John, you've got a ton of resources right now because AI is everywhere. Share a Washington Post tweet and then just add your little spin on it, right? But tag the Washington Post. If you can see who the author is, tag that author of the article. If you've read a book in your genre that you love, do not be afraid to do a little review. And we're going to talk a lot about reviews. So karma here is great. If you've read a book you love and you're given a review on social media, do that author a favor and go and give them a review on Amazon. Yep.
So I do a lot of like story stuff like on Instagram because Instagram is the thing that I'm most comfortable with. So I have and I have like the highlights if you know what those are.
Yep.
Because I love to read and I love like posting the books that I'm reading.
Yeah.
So I started using the highlights more than like the postings. Do you think that there's a difference there or that I should be posting them or highlighting them? Like, what do you think I should be doing with that? Because I love reading and I want to share what I'm reading too.
Yeah. So posts are going to stick around a little bit longer because they're going to show up. You can save highlights. Like I have little circles. If you look on my Highlander Press Instagram, there's you can save highlights to those as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of doing something on my page, but then putting it as a highlight or putting
Okay.
it in the story, right? So sharing a reel. Videos are a great example. Like it'll show up on my post, but then it also shows up in the story. So that there's content there that people can go back and search. Like I've had people come back and because of something I shared, they went to the page and then they kind of scrolled around. They scrolled and found other things. And so they were posting on older content, which then threw it up in the algorithm again, which is really wonderful. So don't be afraid to kind of do both.
Got it. Cool. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I love that. And so curated content, if you want to you could set up a Google alert, and you can put keywords or things that you want to write about, like, and you could have things come into your inbox. I don't know about you, but I get thousands, and I am not exaggerating, thousands of emails in my inbox every day, thousands. So you may want to create a dummy account that is just for this kind of thing that you could have on your phone that you kind of scroll through and then periodically just go in and delete what's in there. So it's not clogging up your inbox, but it's only that kind of curated content. The other way you could do that is if it's coming from that source, you can create up a folder, but you've got to just remember to kind of go in and look at it.
So Debbie, I'm just a little lost on the curated, and then for the dummy account, do you do that on your actual the email account that so like my GinaRamseyAuthor.com? Is there
I actually have a Deborah Keevan 20 that's kind of my junk. I call it my junk folder, but it's like whenever I sign up for something that's not work related or something that is not business related kind of goes there, but I use it more for if I'm buying something, it goes there. But I also have an old Gmail account that all I do is anything like this curated stuff just goes into that Gmail account. And
okay.
then
So
I
I've
have it
got
on,
I've
yeah.
got the two accounts. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
It's just so it doesn't clog it up. If you don't care and you're in your inbox and you're cleaning stuff out, I just get so many emails that I don't want to, I want to be able to highlight what I want to make sure I'm not missing important emails. So, but I literally, I mean, thousands. Anyway, so did that help with curated? Did I answer your question about curated?
I guess like, do you have an example of curated for like,
Humor?
yeah,
Yeah, so for you, it could be just comedians that you find funny.
okay,
You could share their stuff. If there's, let me think, there's all kinds of stuff about humor, like you could just how humor improves life or something. Like you could
yeah,
do a couple of keywords, like, because I'm thinking, I know Psychology Today had an article not that long ago about the power of humor. And we're
got
all
it.
need some humor.
Yep,
Cheer, yeah.
perfect.
So,
Thank you.
so so you could curate that kind of thing. So you could just have it kind of looking, scrolling, doing its little spidery thing and pulling in articles that may or may not help. And then you can share what works for you, but always share your spin on that thing.
Okay,
Like
thank
Joe,
you.
the Eagles have changed their logo several times. So you could talk about the science of logos. Like you could talk about the Eagles in general. You could share posts from the Eagles. You could share posts, old timers. They have old timer day, people who are in the, things about people going into the Hall of Fame. You can share all kinds of stuff like that.
Mhm.
You know, cars from the 70s, like what did Bill drive, that kind of stuff, or what did you drive back then, like, right? So you can talk, you want to show kind of
I drove my parents crazy.
see and show your humor right there. Perfect. Okay, great. So scheduling, I'm a big fan of batching and scheduling. So I've used a bunch of these over the years. I've used Hootsuite. That's where I started. I used Buffer. I used Planoly. My very favorite is Metricool. And I'm going to have Jennifer show you that next week because I think we might run out of time. If we don't, I'll show you the back end of mine. So you can pre-schedule. Go ahead, John.
I have been told that if you use anything other than Buffer to schedule on Facebook and Instagram, that it will not prioritize your pages as highly. I'm wondering if you've heard anything like that, and anecdotally, if you've experienced that, or if you think it's so negligible that it's outweighed by the convenience of using one-stop shopping for scheduling.
That's a great question for Jennifer for next week because that's what she does for a living. My personal experience is I think the convenience of pre-scheduling far outweighs what may or may not. I'm not worrying about whether, because Facebook is so mercurial and it changes its algorithm so frequently that I could spend my life, right, worrying about how it's going to show up. What I like about Metricool is it does show, and I'll show, I hope I have time to show you. It shows you when I'm posting, but then it shows it for me specifically when I should be posting on each of the platforms, and it shows my engagement level and so it shows me what people are liking on all the platforms at once. So I have this nice little bar graph, and then it shows me little blocks like on this post at this time for this kind of content on this. And it shifts, it changes, but what that does is it reinforces that I'm posting at the right time, or I can quickly just go in and make some pretty easy shifts on when I'm posting. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but you can also do unscheduled posting. So unscheduled posting is like when I do my TikToks, I don't pre-schedule my TikToks, I do them live. Let me reframe that. I record them and then I post them. Like I just do it that same day. I may not post it exactly the same day on Instagram. I may post it sometime later, or there's a lag. And I'm still working on getting everything that I've posted on TikTok over to YouTube. That's a work in progress. But that's unscheduled posting. So like I don't schedule those ahead. I just sort of do it. You can see, yes, that's true with Metricool. You can see comment. It's a powerful yet inexpensive tool, I think, for the time. So that's my favorite. So if you're using Facebook in particular, you want to make sure that, so you have your personal page and you want to have an author page, because this is a business and Facebook they go through stages where they will shut you down if you are sharing on your personal page about your business. You're going to have the most friends probably on your personal page, unless you're running ads to your business page, which I don't recommend. But what you can do is share the post on your author page first, and then just share it to your personal page. So I wouldn't do every post, but you could do enough to say, you could say, so for example, say, and Avery, I don't know if this is true or not, but say you don't have, Avery Volt's author or writer Avery Volt's or an author Avery, you don't have that and you want to create that, you want to let people know on your personal page, hey, did you know I have an author profile? I've gotten to the point where I've grown, I need an author profile, right? Because Facebook goes through periods where they just shut people down. And I don't know about you, but I am literally getting scams all 3, 4, 5 times a day on my business accounts right now. It is absolutely insane. We're shutting you down and they are scam posts. Don't click on anything. It's crazy.
They sent them for our other business it was like a direct message.
Yeah, same. They're coming as direct messages.
Messenger, yeah.
Facebook doesn't do that. So just share on your author page. If you have a business page, like I don't think any of you in this cohort are doing business, but I'm just thinking, if you had so say you were writing a nonfiction book that was related to your business, you'd want to also then share from your author page or your business page, depending. Like we had a book we published last year called The Selfish Hour that is directly related to that author's business. So she didn't create an author page. She just ran everything from her business page, but then would share from her business page to her personal page. So you could create and participate in what's called a sharing pod. You guys are kind of naturally in one by being in this cohort. But if you follow each other on social media, you can share each other's posts. So when John posts something on his Instagram that you find interesting, you could share it and tag him to your followers if it's relevant. And I don't want you just to blanket like I got to share everything, but if it's of interest or you particularly find it interesting, you can share from his Instagram to yours, and vice versa. And then you can have a sharing pod where you create a group, like and you could do this, you could use your virtual, our Mighty Network group to create a pod, a sharing pod within there. If one of you want to create a post and say, would you guys mind tagging this? And then put a link to the post in there, people will do that. So you're welcome to do that. It's your group. You can create your own posts. It's not just me pushing. I want you to use this to connect with each other. So the sharing pod could be, hey, they just made the acquisition announcement. Would you mind sharing this and celebrating? I'm in a cohort with this author, and I'm so excited to read his or her book, right? You can do that. And again, family, friends, and your peers are your best people, because we go off the grassroots version of getting people to like you and people to follow you is, 250 people, and every one of those 250 people know 250 people, and so on and so on and so on. So the more that you can ask people to support you, and again, by doing it in a way that, hey, I've just launched my author page. Would you want to follow my author page as well? You could do it that way. You could do a little video and send a message, that kind of thing. Yes, Chris.
Just real quick, the duplication between posting on a personal page and a writer page. Because my biggest issue is I post a lot on my personal page. I almost never cross over because I feel like, oh, I'm hitting people with the same thing multiple times. Do you find that that's an issue, or is it okay to just kind of wallpaper a little bit sometimes? I mean,
I wouldn't say wallpaper. I get what you're saying.
yeah.
So think about it this way. Right now, your business page, your author page may have the same people as your personal page, but that won't always be the case.
Mm-hmm.
And Facebook treats business pages differently. So if you're posting something to your business page, it may or may not show up in their algorithm for your person if they haven't gone there in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's, I would rather you decide to share certain things on your business page to let people get to know you, and then share from your business page to your personal page.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You could do both ways.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't share from your personal to your business.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to
Mm-hmm.
share the same post, like say Fergus did something in particularly hilarious and he's your editing guru.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe share it on your business page, your author page, and then share it from there to your personal page. Because what that does is it also reminds people, oh, she has an author page, and they might go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. Does that
Mm-hmm.
answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Cool.
You're welcome. It's a good question. So monitoring what's working. So this is a little challenging in that if you're not using a tool, you may not know. If you're using Creator Studio within Instagram and Facebook, you can view that, but it has to be a business page. You can't see this necessarily. You can use your gut if it's on your personal page. You're getting, like, I know when I post about my books on my personal page, my personal book, I get so many comments. Like, I know I had a high school friend who I haven't seen since I graduated, maybe at a reunion 25 years ago. And he's like, I'm reading books this year. I want to know which of your books I should get. Well, I'm like, well, my novel hasn't yet been published, but I'll be sure to let you know. And he's like, well, I want an autographed copy. He's paying attention, which totally shocked me, right? Honestly, it shocked me, but you never know. So see what's landing, what's not landing. Are there days and times where people respond to your post? And if you use something like MetroCool, you'll see that and you'll know because it's all contained in there. And then just shift. Like, don't be afraid. I'm not recommending the spaghetti on the wall approach, but I am encouraging you to have fun and play a little bit, see what works, and don't be afraid to make adjustments. Really engage. Do I want you to be 24/7 on social media? I definitely do not. But pick times of the day that you naturally could just check in. So don't just do a post and then ghost, right? If somebody likes your post or makes a comment like this is hilarious or gives a heart or does something, respond, even with just a simple thank you. I'm so glad this was helpful, or I'll be sure to let you know, or did you know, you can do that. Really, really, really start following people you admire and posting on them. So there's a group of now 4 authors, friends in fiction, primarily women, but there are some men that participate in this. It's a Facebook group that started when the pandemic happened. And every Wednesday they bring in another author. Like last night was Kristen Hanna. They interview Kristen Hanna. They save it. They have a podcast. They have social media. They have they do Facebook Lives to do these interviews, and they're recorded. If you have any of those authors that you like Terry Pratchett, I don't know if he still has any social media, but if he does, you should probably follow it, even though he's obviously not posting it unless he's doing so from the great beyond. Neil Gaiman, other authors that you really like, follow them and comment on their stuff, because what happens, especially with authors, is we think of them as being up here, but they're people, right? And if you're posting and tagging when it's your time for your book to come out, they may start following you, even if you don't know it. But because you're liking and tagging and commenting and sharing reviews and telling what you liked, they could do some of that for you. They could say, oh, Chris has got a book coming out. I'm going to make sure and say something, right? So it can happen, and it does happen. So just be you, be consistent. It's not about liking somebody and saying, oh, I have a book coming out like that as well. Don't do that. Don't do what's called pitch slapping. Like, really engage in all honesty. Like, I know, Gina, you go to the Irma Bombeck writing conferences. You have a lot of Irma fans that you're developing these relationships with. Are there other humor writers that you like that you could, or comedians that you find funny? Don't be afraid to comment on what they're sharing.
Can I ask a question, Debbie?
Sure.
Because I know that like on the social media now, I'm 100% positive that I am actually following Steve Martin's stuff, but some of them it just seems like somebody makes an account that
Like it's a
says it's
fan
Steve
account.
Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're usually, you can usually, there used to be a little check mark with a round circle on. I don't know that they're doing that because Meta is now starting to make people pay for, I believe they're starting to make people pay for that. But you can usually tell if it's a fan account. I click on it and see if it's like Brian May, from the guitarist from Queen. I follow him and I love him, but he even says this is the real, Brian May, right? But most of them, unless they're being creepy, I have followed things that I thought were the real people because it presented that way. They're copying from the other person's, and it becomes pretty apparent pretty quickly if they're not. It's a great question. I'm going to go super fast because I've talked on a long time today. So positioning, showcase your expertise, showcase your knowledge, showcase what's going on in your book. If you're problem solving, like Chris, you're going to talk about conflict between countries and trying to find a homeland. What challenges do your characters face that are in the real world? So how can you draw those parallels? And then obviously promote your book. And if you're doing any services related to those books, like you are, Gina, you want to do that. All right, final notes. Ideal readers, ideal readers, ideal readers. Posting, being authentic, having fun. Like, if this feels like drudgery, that's the energy that you're going to be bringing into it. And I'm the first person to admit, I'm the least active on Facebook because to me, it doesn't feel like fun a lot. That's why I love TikTok and I love Instagram. Block time off to do it. We've already done the ideal readers. Select where you're going to focus your marketing efforts, I want you to start following 3 new people every week. 3 new people. And then start thinking about what kind of content you want to share. Okay. I'll put this recording in the chat. I also will give you 20 different ways you can talk about your book. I will put in, I've got to finalize the TikTok thing, so that won't happen today. Or it might happen, but it won't happen when I post everything else. But I'll put it in the same thread. Any questions? Next week we're going to talk about social media even more. Are your heads exploding? A little bit?
Well, it's cold out.
I would say go for a walk, but maybe not.
No.
Go walk around in your house up and down and
Go to the kitchen.
go pace, make a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, maybe pour yourself a scotch. I don't know. You've got this, and this is not the only time we're going to talk about this topic, and you can ask questions at any point. Okay. I know it's a really big deal. Start small and just start. Okay. You got this. So next week, Jennifer Nichols, we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to start talking about book covers. 3 weeks of book covers. Yay. Awesome. And by then, I think we're going to have some book covers to show. All right, everybody, have a great week. I'll see you in the thread. Reach out if you have any questions, and have a great week, and keep it on, and follow each other. Okay. All right. I'll see you next time.
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.